I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune RESET, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Autoimmune RESET podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist and expert in autoimmune disease. And today I'm going to be talking to you about something that affects every aspect of life, and that is energy. So if you've ever felt constantly fatigued, or you've had to rely on caffeine throughout the day or struggled with brain fog, then you are not alone, and I have been there too. And that's what I want to discuss with you today. Because when I think about energy, I actually think about when I had lack of energy. And that first presented itself when I was at school and I was struggling to keep up with my friends doing cross country and team sports like netball and basketball. And I just noticed that I literally couldn't do it and I felt exhausted. At the time, I just thought, well, maybe I'm just not very good at this. Even though I had been fairly athletic when I was younger. And that developed over time. So when I started studying for my A-levels, I would get very, very tired and I would have to go home at lunchtime for a nap. And that nap would often end up being me being asleep for the whole afternoon and waking up in the early evening. Now, luckily enough, I was fairly conscientious when it came to my studying, so I did still study as much as I could around the fatigue, but it just wasn't normal. And no one really picked up that it was an issue. My parents just thought I needed the sleep, and no one really knew about chronic fatigue syndrome as much back then. And I had been to the doctors and they just would say that I'm getting up too early or I'm working too hard. But the truth is, at that age, when you're 17 or 18 years old, you should have more energy than that. And of course, I was diagnosed with alopecia areata when I was 7, and I had psoriasis in my teenage years. So there was lots going on with my health at that point in time. But that's really when I noticed the main dip in my own energy. And I think I see that a lot with my clients who feel that their tiredness, or let's call it fatigue, might relate to the fact that they are up early for work, or they have demanding jobs, or they have a lot going on. And I'm not saying that isn't part of it, because I truly believe that is part of it. But I still have a very, what I would call, demanding life, and I have a lot going on, and I get tired, but I don't get the same fatigue. And for me, I did go on to study autoimmune disease and immunology and biochemistry at university because autoimmune disease was affecting my family and it was affecting me. I really enjoyed studying it, and I did a case study on vasculitis, and it's very interesting going into the hospitals. So I loved that. And then after university, I went traveling. And at this point, I had been in and out of the doctors probably at least 10 times over university, and they told me that I had a sister virus to glandular fever. But I went travelling to Australia and Bali and had an amazing time. But I think when you're travelling, it's probably a bit less noticeable that you're tired, because again, you just put it down to the fact that you're travelling around, and that's the reason that you feel tired. And I wasn't eating the best diet travelling either. But when I came back, I decided, because I'd had some corporate jobs whilst I was traveling in Australia and working in Sydney, I came back and decided to not focus on science and become a chartered accountant. And I got a job with Deloitte, and I went through their training scheme and did all the exams. And it was during the exams that I started experiencing brain fog. I was having anxiety during the exams. I was getting panic attacks. And I just didn't recognize my own brain, and I didn't recognize myself. That wasn't how I had been before. Again, I went to the doctors, and I remember they said to me that I was getting up too early, and I was working long hours. Though, as I said, that was definitely part of it. But, I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I see that now. And it wasn't until my early 30s when I was getting other symptoms like joint issues, migraines, lots of different skin issues, that I went to see a nutritionist, because my friend was studying nutrition at the time. And I was working in London at that point, and my left ankle swelled up. I couldn't get my shoe on. Everyone was like, well, what have you done? And I was like, nothing. And I just woke up, and now I've got this issue with my ankle and I can hardly walk. So I went to see this nutritionist, and it was part of a student session. So I was there, and we discussed my diet and my lifestyle. And gluten wasn't really a thing back then, so no one really was following a gluten-free diet. But she just mentioned, well, maybe cut out wheat and see how you get on, because I'd always known I had an issue with dairy, but I wasn't as aware of having an issue with gluten. And when I cut gluten out my diet, after having this swollen ankle for 2 weeks, it went down within 3 days. And that's when I realised, oh wow, nutrition can have such a powerful effect on the body. And why I ended up becoming a nutritional therapist. I also noticed that my energy improved, and then I started making changes to my diet. I started studying nutrition and functional medicine myself, and then I was able to get my energy back. And it took about 6 months to really see those meaningful changes. I definitely had seen improvements within, say, the first 3 months, and then within 12 months, I had not only seen an improvement in my energy and a significant improvement where I was able to get up in the morning feeling refreshed. I wasn't as reliant on caffeine. I was able to exercise and didn't hurt for days afterwards. I felt generally pretty good. I was able to exercise more frequently. My brain felt better. I wasn't falling asleep on a night like I was before. So there were so many different improvements. But not only that, all my autoimmune symptoms reversed as well. So it just had that knock-on effect. So working on that one particular system in my body had such a benefit to everything else. And once you get your energy back as well, you can start making improvements in other areas because you have the energy to do it. And that's why energy is so important. And the main focus when it comes to energy is really your cellular health. And that is why I run the cell health testing package in my clinic. It's a test called the metabolomics, which specifically looks at your cellular health. It looks at your metabolism, which is how well you are able to produce energy from the food that you are eating. It looks at nutrient deficiencies. It looks at toxicity. It looks at lots of different other factors which are going to affect your cellular health. And I will put a link to that in the show notes if you'd like to find out more about your test. But I find it so helpful when I'm working with clients because straight away I understand which area of their cellular health we need to focus on the most, and that can help. But when it comes to energy, really what we're talking about is the mitochondria, which are those energy factories in your cells, and they help to generate this thing called ATP, which is energy, and that's how you feel energized in the daytime. You're producing this compound which helps to energize you, and if that is not working effectively, then you are going to feel fatigued and tired, and you're not going to be able to do as much because your body just isn't functioning as well as it could. Now, the thing about mitochondria is they are very fragile, and factors like oxidative stress, inflammation, and nutrient deficiencies can impair their function because they are hungry, they need nutrients, and they need the nutrients delivered directly to them. So if there is any issue with that, that is going to mean that you are not going to be able to produce as much energy. And oxidative stress is a status in the body where you have more free radicals than antioxidants, and that can happen for many reasons. We are generally making lots of free radicals as part of producing energy, but they should be neutralized by antioxidants. And when there are more free radicals, it's either you don't have enough antioxidants in your diet or in your body, or your body is not producing them, because you can produce glutathione, which is an antioxidant as well. Or it means that your body is making a lot of free radicals, and you've got to understand what that is, and that can be to do with toxicity, chronic infections, and many other factors. And the thing about mitochondria is that it has its own DNA as well. So you have your DNA both from your mum and dad, but then you also have DNA in your mitochondria, and that just comes down the maternal line. So it's quite interesting to think about that, because when you're thinking about your energy and the DNA related to your energy, you want to look more to your mother than your father. Now, part of producing energy is your gut. And if your gut isn't working optimally, then it means that you are not going to be absorbing those key nutrients that the mitochondria needs to produce energy. And I find when I run stool tests for my clients, they are generally not breaking down proteins and fats very well. And if you're not breaking down proteins and fats optimally, then it means that you are probably missing out on some of the micronutrients as well, especially the fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A and vitamin E and vitamin D, which are so vital to so many different functions in the body, in particular your energy function. So if your gut is not working as well as it could be, or your digestive function is impaired for whatever reason, then again that can be an issue. And also, if you have inflammation in your gut due to a food sensitivity or bacterial overgrowth or a parasite, or producing toxins in your gut, then that inflammation can have a knock-on effect to the rest of your body, because your gut is central to everything, and 70% of the immune system is in the gut. So if you are inflamed in your gut, it's more likely you're going to be inflamed in your body. And the mitochondria, the organelles that produce energy, really don't like inflammation. It can damage them. So we need to make sure that we are keeping our inflammation down as well. And actually, you can look at this as part of improving your mitochondrial health, but you can also look at it as reducing your inflammation. And that's why I have developed my signature program all around reducing inflammation in your body, because it can have a knock-on effect to so many different areas, and that's called the inflammation reset. But gut dysbiosis and leaky gut syndrome, where you have an increased permeability of the digestive tract, can be an issue as well, because it means you're going to let in food particles from the gut, any bacteria, any viruses, any yeast, any toxins. They're going to go into the bloodstream, and again that's going to fire up an inflammatory response, and that again can damage the mitochondria. But let's look at what your mitochondria need to thrive, because when we're looking at what your mitochondria need to thrive, we're actually looking at what you need to thrive. And one of the best ways to support your mitochondria is through nutrient-dense foods, because we need to think about our mitochondria as these tiny engines inside your cells. And just like a car needs fuel to work, your mitochondria thrives on vitamins and minerals that can help generate energy. Prioritizing whole foods, which are rich in antioxidants, B vitamins, magnesium and CoQ10 are absolutely vital for your energy function. And these nutrients can also bring down oxidative stress, which again is going to enhance ATP production, and that's what we want to look for. When it comes to my own journey of overcoming chronic fatigue syndrome, one of the most transformative things that I did was get rid of my microwave. And I'm not massively against microwaves. I don't think microwaving things in plastics is a good idea, but I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because I had got to the point that I was reliant on ready meals. My life was very busy. I'm going to use that word because I just had lots going on, way too much that I didn't really need to be doing, to be honest. So I decided that I didn't have time to cook, and that was at that point in time. I did have a realization later down the line that I could make it quite simple and still cook whole foods. But at the time, I had started becoming reliant on microwave meals, and so was my husband, and we'd probably been eating them for about 4 years. And by getting rid of my microwave, it just meant that I wasn't able to rely on those ready meals anymore. And I just started experimenting with food. I had actually loved cooking as a teenager. I used to cook for my family, and I was still cooking in my 20s, but it was really when I started climbing up the corporate ladder and I had a lot more going on and I wanted to focus on other things that we just decided that these microwave meals are going to be an easier option. But when I started cooking from scratch again, I just realized actually just to put some salmon in the oven with some vegetables on a baking tray, it takes me 15 minutes, and it was very easy, and I made it very convenient for myself, and I started to get more familiar with recipes and just slowly integrated them into my life. And by doing that, it made such a huge difference. And that was because I was finally getting more nutrients in my diet. Because if you look at some of those ready meals, they might look good on the outside, like low fat, low sugar, whatever the markings are. But that's really not the point when it comes to energy. I mean, that is a factor, but we want more nutrients. We want to get as many nutrients as we can into our diet. And we don't want to load up on a huge amount of calories, but we should be focused more on nutrients than anything else. And some great choices for foods that are really rich in nutrients are dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, eggs, and high quality and preferably organic meats and wild caught oily fish. And that brings me on to healthy fats, because again, that was something that I just wasn't eating in my diet when I look back. And mitochondria rely heavily on healthy fats for fuel. And omega-3 fatty acids, which you find in oily fish, are the best option, I would say, because they are the more active form of the omega-3s. So they're going to have this anti-inflammatory effect on your body as well. And I use the acronym SMASH because the smaller the fish, the better, because it means there's going to be less toxicity. So if you use the SMASH acronym, which is sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, and herring, then you are going to get the benefits of the omega-3 fatty acids, but you're not going to get as much toxicity. So one day a week I will have sardines, another day a week I will have salmon, and then another day a week I will have some mackerel. And that's how I like to structure it. And you can make things like mackerel pate. I make a really lovely dish with sardines and either gluten-free pasta or butternut squash spaghetti, and that's a really nice meal. And then I will generally just lightly saute the salmon and then put it in the oven, and I will normally top that with a dairy-free pesto, which you can either put on top of it in the oven or you can put on it afterwards. So they're kind of my go-to staple meals that I'm making, but there are many more that you can start to incorporate as well. And they really help to support the mitochondrial membrane integrity, which is absolutely vital when it comes to producing energy. There's also these fats called medium chain triglycerides, which are found in coconut oil and dairy, and they are quickly converted into these things called ketones, which are really efficient as an energy source, and they can help to sustain energy throughout the day. And that was the first thing I was looking for, because I remember being at work and after lunch I was so tired. I literally couldn't think about anything other than staying awake. And when I started adopting more of a ketosis type diet, I noticed that my energy was much better. And that's not a diet that I follow now. I prefer doing intermittent fasting, but at the time it really helped. So focusing on a diet that was very low in carbohydrates, high in healthy fats, and with protein and fresh vegetables. And I even use something called a keto mojo, where you could test your ketone levels, see if you are in that therapeutic range of ketosis, and could also check your blood glucose levels as well. So that was quite a nice little device to have at the time. But as I say, now I don't strictly follow a keto diet. I follow more of a diet where I am eating some healthy, good quality meats and fish with lots of vegetables, but I do eat carbohydrates. But I just make sure that I am more conscious of the healthy fats that I'm including in the diet now. And luckily my energy is much better now, so I have more tolerance to carbohydrates, and that's often what you find when you have issues with your energy, that your tolerance to carbohydrates goes down. And that again can be detected on that metabolomics panel. And I recently did the metabolomics panel, and I was quite happy to see that when it comes to utilizing energy from fats and carbohydrates, I am doing that very efficiently now, and I am making ketones quite easily, so my body's able to use any fat that I have stored as energy when it needs to. And that can be an issue for people when they are trying to lose weight. If their metabolic health isn't working well, and this relates to your mitochondria, if that is not working well, then when you have time without eating between meals, and your body should be able to use the energy that you have stored on your body, what can happen is when people are finding it hard to lose weight is that their body isn't able to do that, and you are just far more reliant on the food you're eating. But then you start storing more fat, and then over time you will find that your weight starts going up gradually, and it's because that your body's kind of lost the ability to be able to utilize the energy that you already have stored. And that's why working on your mitochondrial health can really, really help with that. So we often underestimate the role of hydration in energy production as well. And I expect you know that you need to be drinking at least 2 litres of water a day, and to sip it throughout the day and to stay hydrated. And you do feel a lot better when you're hydrated. So I think we are aware that we need to be doing this, but practically, how do we make sure that we're getting enough water? And the way I like to do it is to fill a litre bottle with water in the morning, and then I will fill a litre bottle in the afternoon, and I'll just make sure that I've drank that throughout the day. So I know for definite I've had 2 litres of water. However, what you need to be mindful of, especially if you're drinking filtered water, because filtered water is great at filtering out the impurities, but it can also strip out the minerals. And I would just say, whatever type of water you're drinking, it is worth putting some electrolytes into the water, and that can really help to make sure that your body doesn't become dehydrated from the amount of water you are drinking, which can happen because the mitochondria work through a process of osmosis, and all your cells do. So we need to make sure that we have the minerals there so they can soak up the water, so that you don't become dehydrated as a result of having too much water. And I noticed this in myself years ago. I would drink lots and lots of water, be constantly thirsty, and constantly going to the toilet. So it's just like literally going through me. And then I found by using electrolytes, I'm less thirsty, less reliant on water, even to the point that I can go for quite long runs now and not need to take any water with me, which, you know, is completely different to how I used to be. So let's talk about what disrupts mitochondrial function, because one of the biggest energy disruptors is unstable blood sugar. So when you're having lots of spikes in blood sugar and crashes, and that is because when we consume too much sugar or refined carbohydrates and we have those spikes, that can cause oxidative stress and inflammation. And we know the mitochondria don't like that. And that then means that you actually become more reliant on eating sugar because your mitochondria isn't working effectively, so you are feeling tired, and it becomes this vicious cycle. So one way you can make sure that you are stabilizing your blood sugar is to eat protein with every meal, and you want to be looking for a palm-sized amount of protein with every meal. So not just making sure that you're having a high protein meal every day, it's having protein with every meal, because that helps to stabilize your blood sugar. You can also use strategies like making sure that you are eating refined carbohydrates or sugary food after a meal, because your blood sugar is going to be more stabilized. It's going to take longer to digest that food, and that's going to be helpful. So that might be one strategy that you can use. And then moving after eating can also help to stabilize your blood sugar. So that might be something you do. Eat your lunch, sit and rest and digest it for 10 minutes, and then go for a walk outside. Another thing that your mitochondria don't like are environmental toxins, because they are so sensitive to these toxins, and we encounter these daily through pesticides, plastics, and heavy metals in food and in water, and factories, or in the places we work. We can become exposed to them as well. And the thing about these toxins is, if we're not detoxifying effectively, then it means that they can build up in our body and seep into our cells, and that can cause disruption. And when I'm working with clients and we've looked at their gut health, and we've looked at their nutrient deficiencies, and we've looked at lots of other factors, and they are still not feeling great, then I often find that there is some form of chemical toxicity. And even in our furniture and in our cleaning products, they are sometimes giving off gases that could be affecting us. And again, it's not always about the exposure. It can also be about how well we're detoxing it, but it is worth being aware of that. And you can use the Environmental Working Group's website to check your products. It is an American organization, so if you're based outside of America, you might not find all your products on there. But the way I use it is, when I'm buying a new product, I will check it on there, and you can find products that you can buy internationally. So that's the way that I will use it. And you can often see at the back of a packaging and the labels, you can check the ingredients and see whether they are toxic or not. So that might be something to do. If you get new furniture, making sure that you're opening windows, because they have certain chemicals on them to help to protect against fires and other things. So we just need to be more conscious if we are doing any home renovations, or if we are buying a lot of new furniture, or we've done some painting, just to be aware that that could potentially be a toxin in the body, and it can affect your energy levels. But you can reduce your exposure to pesticides by eating more organic foods. Again, you can go over to the Environmental Working Group's website and check the Dirty Dozen list. So the Dirty Dozen list are the fruits and vegetables that you shouldn't eat if they are not organic. And then you've got the Clean 15 list, which you can use to guide you to buy non-organic foods that probably aren't as toxic. So they are just some good references if you want to start improving the food that you're eating and eating more organic food. Stress is also a major factor when it comes to mitochondria, because chronic stress leads to the high cortisol levels, which impair mitochondrial function and energy production. And poor sleep will also disrupt the repair and regeneration of mitochondria. So prioritizing stress management through mindfulness, breath work, and ensuring good sleep hygiene is crucial for sustainable energy. And I know that sounds easier said than done, and I'm sure that is the case, but it is just always good to be reflecting on that and making improvements where you can. I've recently started using a NeuroSim, which is a vagus nerve stimulator. There are some other products on the market as well which can help with that. And it's really helped to improve my deep sleep. My stress levels during the daytime have come down. I feel a lot calmer. And it has also helped to improve my heart rate variability, which is a really good marker for health, and also how much your body is in that parasympathetic state, that therapeutic state, versus the sympathetic state, which is more the fight or flight state. So I've really enjoyed using that, and I'll put details of that in the show notes if you'd like to find out more about that device. But on top of that, I also love to use binaural beats. So you can find those on lots of different music channels, looking for those alpha waves that can help with focus and relaxation. And you can just use them wired headphones, put those in, take 10 minutes to just shut your eyes, and that can really help to bring down your stress response. And then on an evening, bringing in things like Epsom salt baths can be helpful. Doing yoga, journaling, reading, those can put you in a really nice calm state to go into a deep sleep. Now, I know sleep is a lot more complex than this, especially if you have sleep issues. So I can't go through everything today, but just making sure that you've got those healthy practices in can make a big difference. So let's look at ways that we can enhance our mitochondria, because that means that we're going to enhance our energy. And some of the research has shown that intermittent fasting can really help to promote mitochondrial biogenesis. So helping to increase the amount of mitochondria that you have, but also when you are intermittent fasting, you promote autophagy, which helps to kill off all the bad cells in your body and really help to produce those healthy cells. And that can be quite a good process to do. And it's something that I did a lot when I first started improving my health. I still do intermittent fasting, but I was doing longer fasts through something called Prolon, which is the fasting mimicking diet. I haven't done it for a while, but I certainly did see improvements when I was doing it. It certainly isn't for everyone, but I did quite enjoy doing it. I particularly liked it for my productivity, to be honest, because you have the set meals, and then by about the fourth day, you just feel so energized. I hadn't felt that energized in such a long time, and then I started doing that, and it was amazing. So I really enjoyed doing that, but there are other ways that you can promote autophagy as well. And autophagy also promotes your body to produce those ketones that I mentioned earlier. So it's another way outside of following a keto diet that you can produce ketones. And that's the way I prefer to do it. So starting with a 12-hour fast can be the best way to get started with intermittent fasting, see how you feel, and then if you can, increase that to 16 hours a day. And you don't have to do that every day. You can do that a couple of times a week, just to get this benefit of autophagy, which can help to enhance mitochondrial production, but also kill off the mitochondria that aren't working effectively, or to help repair them. Because when your body thinks that it's in a nutrient deficient state, it holds on to those healthy cells, and then it helps to get rid of the unhealthy cells. And it's something that researchers hadn't identified before, and realizing that it's so important for the human body that we have these times where we are fasting. Another way that you can help your mitochondria is through cold and heat exposure. And the body changes when it is exposed to extreme temperatures. With cold therapy such as ice baths, or you can just turn on the shower to cold for a minute at the end of your shower, that can help stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. So that's helping to create new mitochondria. And then heat exposure like saunas supports detoxification and cellular repair. And I'll be honest, I prefer my saunas to cold therapy. And there is some research emerging that a lot of the cold therapy research was on men. And so there is some new research around women, and the fact that women don't need it quite as cold as men need it to get the same benefits. And then lastly, exercise is one of the most powerful tools for mitochondrial health. And I know when you have a chronic illness or autoimmune disease, it might not be as available to you, but doing cardiovascular exercise can help to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. I honestly run now to support my mitochondria and my brain health. When I look back at when I was doing exercise in my early 20s, I was probably doing it to keep my weight in check and stay fit. But now how I look at it is for my body and my brain and my immune system and my energy function. And that really helps me to feel motivated around exercise. And I do enjoy exercise as well. And now I've got my energy back and I can do more, I'm actually reaping more of the benefits. It just shows you what can happen once you get your energy back. But strength training also improves muscle efficiency and insulin sensitivity, which means that is going to help with your blood sugar regulation, and that's going to increase your tolerance to carbohydrates. And as I mentioned, carbohydrate intolerance can be a major factor in chronic fatigue. So improving your insulin sensitivity can make a big difference. And I like to combine cardiovascular exercise. So I prefer running. I will do a little bit of HIIT, and then I will do some strength training, say 3 to 4 times a week if I can. I also love Pilates. So when I can fit it all in, I do. But I would say I'm not doing as much as I would like every week, and that is life. And that's what I say to my clients. This is kind of the ideal situation, but you don't want to put any pressure on yourself if you don't do everything. You don't have to do everything. When you do something, celebrate it, because you've made a positive decision for your health. And if you don't do everything that you set out to do that week, don't feel bad about it. Feel really good about what you have done. And that's how I look at it. You know, I've got an ideal exercise regime. The amount of times I actually stick to that is not as often as I'd like. Maybe just because I plan to do far more than I would like to do. But when I do exercise, I feel so good. And I know it's making such a big difference to my energy and my mitochondria. And I would just say on that note, if you are feeling exhausted after exercise and you've done too much, you really do want to leave 20% in the tank when it comes to energy. And if you're not feeling that way, then you're probably doing too much. So cut it down a little bit. You want to be feeling good, and you want those endorphins flowing after exercise. You don't want to be feeling completely drained by it. So I know we've talked about a lot today about energy. If there's anything that I've mentioned that you would like to ask me about, then feel free to pop over to my Instagram account, which is at the Autoimmunity Nutritionist. I am also going to be letting you know about a new program that I have called Thyroid Revived, which is a program to help support people with hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism, which is something that I had. And it's going to include 5 modules, which I'm going to be talking about what your tests mean, foods that are great for thyroid health. So lots of information all around ways to restore your thyroid health. There'll be a 4-week meal plan included, and then a 2-hour workshop, which will be live, where we're going to make sure that your plan is personalized to you, because you know I believe in personalization. So I didn't just want to give you the program, I want to give you this level of personalization as well. So you'll have 2 hours to go through that and ask me about that. It's just £97. And I will be sharing more about that shortly. If you want to find out more about that program, then again, feel free to contact me over on Instagram, or you can send me an email, and you'll find my email in the show notes. And on top of that, you can also join my group, the Autoimmune Forum. It's a free group where I'm sharing lots of information about autoimmune disease. I'm sharing recipes, and we've just got such a lovely community there who we're all supporting each other with chronic illness and autoimmune disease. So I'd love to see you over there too. If not, have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.